Analyzing your customers by their acquisition cohort is simply the most important and impactful way to drive your most critical business measures, customer acquisition, and customer retention. In this video, we are taking the initial steps in performing a customer cohort analysis, preparing your data in spreadsheets, today on Art+Science. Hey there, I'm Kevin Hartman, Associate Professor at the University of Notre Dame and founder of the Art+Science Analytics Institute, where our mission is to make you a better data analyst. Today we are discussing how you prepare your data for a customer cohort analysis. This video will connect to our next video, which will explore the way you build the cohort analysis framework, patterns to look for, and what those patterns mean. But before you can start analyzing, you need to collect the proper data and build the component parts of your cohorts. That's what we're doing today. Creating customer cohorts is easier than you might think. With just 2 pieces of data, you can start uncovering very valuable insights that are going to drive and change your business performance. In this video, we will cover what cohort analysis is and why it matters, the data that is required and where you'll find it, and how to prepare those data for analysis. Let's start with what a customer cohort is and how it differs from more traditional customer segments. Cohorts refer to a group of customers who share a specific characteristic, commonly something that is time-bound, like the period of time in which they first made their purchase, or events that made them your customer, like a sale or an offer. The purpose of a cohort analysis, then, is to track behavior of those customer groups over time. This helps you identify trends and patterns in consumer behavior, like seasonal variations, and makes it easier for you to track important measures like churn rates and revenue generation. Cohort analysis is particularly useful in pinpointing when issues pop up in your business and understanding how specific events impact customer behavior. Cohorts differ from traditional consumer segments. Customer segmentation divides your entire customer base into distinct groups based on some shared attributes, such as location, or a demographic feature, or preferences, or even behaviors, or some kind of blend of all those attributes, without tying these segments to a particular time frame. Customer segmentation helps you identify important groups of customers and tailor marketing messages that fit their specific needs, but it doesn't tell you a lot about how your business is performing. Customer cohort analysis and customer segmentation are complementary and often used in tandem. However, it's customer cohort analysis that offers deep insights into how consumer behavior evolves over time and what specific factors impact your business performance. There are several ways to group customers into cohorts, not all of them time-bound. There's acquisition channel, where they first came to you from Facebook or Google search. There are subscription level cohorts. Did they buy just a base level or do they buy the whole package from you? Or product cohorts. What kind of product did they purchase? Now, these types of cohorts can yield great insights into what products lead to profitable relationships or what subscription levels are working for you. But from my experience, grouping customers into acquisition cohorts based on when they first became a customer of yours is the most effective method for understanding them. Utilizing customer cohort analysis has greatly improved my understanding of customer behavior and yielded some really important insights for my clients. As an example, I used an acquisition cohort approach to evaluate a company that my client was considering purchasing. Our study showed that while the company had very high customer acquisition, their ability to retain those customers was severely lacking. This made their business model unsustainable. They were burning through customers as quickly as they were acquiring them, meaning they would eventually burn through their entire addressable market. This was a really important insight because the company heavily marketed their large and consistent monthly customer base, but that effectively hid the fact that for every new customer they gained, one would leave. These findings caused our client to ultimately reject the purchase and avoid what certainly would have been a loss in their investment, all thanks to a customer cohort analysis based on acquisition. Now let's talk about the data you'll need and where you'll find it. Only 2 pieces of data are required for each transaction in the time frame you're analyzing. They are a unique customer ID and a transaction date. The customer ID is the unique code that you give each of them to differentiate them from one another. This is the data element that links a customer's transaction back to them and only them. A transaction date is simply the date when a purchase is made, or in the case of a subscription service, the date they signed up and then each date that they renew their service. Think about the day that you signed up for Netflix, and then that day each month that Netflix charges you to keep your account current. These dates should include day, month, and year, ideally in a 4-digit year, 2-digit month, 2-digit day format for easy sorting and analysis. The most likely place you'll find these data are in a transaction log, the raw data that is created with every purchase that is made. This could be an internal database or data from a third party like Square or some other payment app if that's how customers buy from you. With customer ID and transaction data collected for each transaction in your analysis, you are now ready to start preparing data for a cohort analysis. Additional data you might have in that transaction log, such as sales revenue or profit earned on each transaction, could be used to add color and context to a cohort analysis, and that's probably the subject of a future video. But today we're just talking about building those customer cohorts and beginning to analyze them, and those are the two important measures that you'll need to get to things like acquisition and retention rates. So let's talk data preparation. We're going to do all of this preparation in a spreadsheet, assuming that you have a relatively manageable size of transactions. But look for future videos where we'll explore how to create cohorts in R and SQL if you've got really big, massive data sets. There are 3 things you must do to prepare your data for analysis. The first is building your purchase periods. This means categorizing your transaction dates into weekly, monthly, and quarterly purchase periods. The second is isolating acquisition dates. This means finding for each customer the day that they made their first purchase with you. And then the third thing is building your acquisition cohorts. This means categorizing those acquisition dates into weekly, monthly, and quarterly acquisition cohorts, similar to what we did with the purchase periods. As always, there's a step-by-step guide linked in the description below so you can follow along or practice after watching the video. To begin, we're going to group the transaction dates into various time intervals, these weekly, monthly, and quarterly categories. These intervals are very important because they provide us with the ability to examine customer behavior at different levels of detail. Let's jump into the spreadsheet and show you how it's done. So here I am in my spreadsheet. I've got the 2 pieces of data that I need: the customer ID, which is that unique ID given to each customer, and then the date of the transaction. I'm going to begin by just adding my column headers here: week, month, quarter. These are the 3 time periods that I'm going to aggregate all of the transactions around. So basically, to do that, what I need to do is convert that transaction date into a week number. Which number of the week it is going to range from 1, the first week of the year, to 52 or 53, depending on how long the year is. The month number, 1 for January all the way to 12 for December, and then the quarter, 1, 2, 3, 4 for that date. So there's a number of ways that I can do this, but the easiest way that I find is a pretty simple formula that just extracts the required year and then either the week number or the month, or calculates a quarter. But for the week and the month, I'm going to need to wrap around that a text function that allows me then to format the data that is returned and give me a leading 0. And I'm going to show you why. Let's do it first without that text function. I'll just extract the data that I need for week. So it's a very simple formula. Basically, what I'm grabbing is the year from this date. I am adding a dash in between, and then the second function is just one called week num, which is going to return for me the number of the week that date fell in, and there you go. So that gives me the year 2023, the week number, first one. If I copy that down, now the problem that I have here is if I sort this column now on week, data, sort range, on week, you'll see what happens. I go from week number 1 to 10 to 11. Why is this? Because I don't have that leading 0 then. So all I need to do is fix this formula by adding a text function around it and then formatting that text function. Simply add the word text here. The end, my format is going to be a 4-digit year, followed by 2 digits because of the leading 0. It looks like 2 months, a 2-digit month. It might expect that is a month, but it's not. It doesn't matter, even though I have numbers that are going to range all the way to 53. This is just telling the function that there are two characters in the return. And there you go. Now it goes from the 1 to 0, 1. That I can copy all the way down. And now if I go back in and sort those columns on week, now I've got the right format. 1 to 2 to 3. The month function is similar. It's the exact same formula, save for one change. So if I just add the text around this, again, I'm grabbing the year from that date. I'm adding a hyphen. And then sort of the week num, I'm just grabbing the month from that date, which will return the 1 to 12. Again, formatting this in the same way, year, dash mm to get a leading 0. Copy that all the way down, and I've got that as well. Now, the quarter calculation, this is a little more complicated. I don't need to format it. All I'm going to do is just have the year, a hyphen, a Q, and then quarter 1, 2, or 3, or 4. But I need to calculate the quarter based on the month of the year. So I do need to add a roundup function. I could use that traditional roundup. I'm going to use something that's called ceiling, which is effectively the same thing. It'll take the fraction that is produced, round that up to 1. Let me show you how this formula would operate if I didn't round up that total. So it's basically year from the date, ampersand, add a dash and a Q, and then I'm going to take the month from that date. I'm going to divide it by 3. If I do that, yeah, that's not what I'm looking for. Quarter 0.3. So I just basically have to get into that month. I could use roundup again. I'm going to use ceiling, CE, as the function, which is going to round that to a factor of 1, a whole number. If I use roundup, I just say 0 digits. And there you go. Now I've got that to Q1. If I scroll down, as we get into the second month, the third month, it's all in Q1. As I get into transactions in April, and the fourth month, you see it changes to Q2. If I go on through in July, it changes to Q3. I'm satisfied that I've got the purchase periods now as I need them. Our next step is to determine the acquisition date for each customer, which can also be referred to as a first purchase date or the customer's birth date. There are a number of ways to isolate that date for each customer in Google Sheets or Excel, but the simplest, most elegant way that I know is using the min-ifs function. Let's show you how to do that now. So now I'm going to go in and isolate that acquisition date. First, I'm going to just add the header of a date. Basically, what I'm trying to find is that first transaction date for every single customer. I have sorted the data that I have here now on customer ID and then by date. So you can see that first customer had 2 purchases, next one had 3 purchases, next one had, 8 purchases or so. But I want to write a formula that will go in and, based on a unique customer ID, bring back for me that first transaction date, no matter how many times they purchase. Every time it's going to return that same date. That is, as I mentioned, the min-ifs formula, a very elegant formula. While there's hundreds of ways to get to this date, this is the simplest, this is the easiest way to make it happen. The formula is just min-ifs. The range that I'm returning the minimum from is the date. The criteria range that I'm searching for is the customer ID range. And what I'm looking to return is just that customer ID in that row. Boom. If I copy that all the way down, here's what you see. For customer 1AA2772, who had 2 transactions, the first one was done on August 21st. Well, that becomes the acquisition date for each. And you can just see for every single customer, unique customer ID, there's a consistent first acquisition date for them found through that min-ifs formula. So now that I've found my acquisition date, I'm going to create my acquisition periods in the same way that I created periods around the transaction date. I'll begin by adding my column headers. Let's go a week, a month, a quarter, and it almost feels like cheating, but I did all the hard work of converting that transaction date into different periods already. I'm just going to copy these formulas that were pointed back at the transaction date, move them over a few columns, and point them toward the acquisition date. And with that, I am done. I'll copy these formulas down, and I now have created all of the data that I need to conduct my customer cohort analysis. By following these steps, you can effectively prepare your data for a cohort analysis and start to yield some really important insights. Thanks so much for watching. If you haven't already, take a moment and subscribe to this channel, like this video, and share it with anyone who you think is interested in data analytics. Every single week, we are bringing new, exciting, and important videos on data analytics, and we would love to have you there for the journey. Also, be sure to check out links in the description below for additional Art+Science resources, and sign up for our newsletter to get exclusive tips, course updates, and more directly to your inbox. Look for the next video where we show you how to build a customer cohort analysis framework using a spreadsheets pivot table and the data that we've just prepared. Once we have the cohort analysis framework built, we'll show you how to analyze it, exactly what to look for, and what each pattern means. Until then, we'll see you in the next video.